This is Gotham TV Podcast, episode 95, where we're talking about Gotham Heroes Rise, Season 3, Episode 16, These Delicate and Dark Obsessions.
I'm David Mazuz, and you're listening to Gotham TV Podcast.
This is Drew Powell, and you're listening to Gotham TV Podcast.
This is Robin Lloyd Taylor, and you are listening to Gotham TV Podcast.
Welcome back, Gothamites, to Gotham TV Podcast, episode 95, where we're talking about Season 3, episode 16 of Gotham, These Delicate and Dark Obsessions. Do you know what's been my obsession this weekend, John?
Oh, go on.
San Diego Comic-Con. I have been watching every moment I possibly could.
We got a few spoilers for Season 4 as well.
Yeah, we did. For season
but good
3.
spoilers.
For Season 3, yeah. Of Gotham. The episodes we haven't seen so far, but that's okay.
That's true.
Don't really mind. It was great fun seeing all of the cast of Gotham down there. Great to see Sean Pertwee make it. He was flown in on a plane, arrived during the signing session for the cast of Gotham. It was quite cool. Poor David is back for filming Season 4, so couldn't make it down to San Diego. But quite cool seeing them all there.
Yeah, absolutely. Really great seeing them all there. It was amazing to see Babs there. Mm-hmm. That was one of the spoilers for this season for me, and obviously Season 4, but she was looking very white. She had bleach blonde hair, or bleach white hair almost, looking
radiant. I'd say radiant.
Yeah, radiant. No, she looked really good, but she looked really good, but there was a hint of a Harley Quinn about her.
Oh, don't say that.
I know I shouldn't, and I know I'll get beaten up probably.
By me, probably. I don't want Babs to be Harley Quinn.
Yeah. It was interesting. I just wondered whether it was to do with the character.
Maybe. We'll be intrigued.
Given Season 4 is filming.
They are filming Season 4 at the moment, yeah. But lots of cool San Diego Comic-Con stuff going on this weekend in the movie universe as well. We're not going to talk about that in this podcast. This podcast is obviously all about Gotham. So we may talk about it on another podcast.
Absolutely. And of course, I'm one of your other hosts, John.
That's true, yes. I'm Derek. I'm one of your hosts, obviously, if you haven't tuned in before. But yes, this episode we're going to get
carried
into...
away with San Diego Comic-Con. Loads going on. Both for Gotham and, of course, within the Marvel universe as well. And if you want to check anything out in relation to our podcast on all things Marvel Netflix Defenders, you can go to defenderstvpodcast.com/iTunes, and anything to do with Gotham and the DC-verse to some extent, you can go to gothamtvpodcast.com/iTunes. And of course, both those podcasts are also available in any other good or evil podcast catcher.
That's right, yeah. Just search for Gotham TV Podcast or Defenders TV Podcast if you want to catch up with all of our stuff. I think it's time to get into the episode, John.
Definitely.
Yeah. This episode was directed by our wonderful leader of Gotham, Ben McKenzie, directing an episode of Gotham.
Yeah. Fantastic. I have to say,
what a job.
Really want to give Ben McKenzie some props here.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the visual style on this episode of Gotham, Gotham has a great visual style anyway in terms of how they dress the sets, the clothes that are worn, the locations that they pick, and how they kind of, transform New York into Gotham. Mm-hmm. But some of the framing, some of the shots from Ben McKenzie here, I thought were really, really good, and some of the effects that have been used and how they were used by him was really good. Like, we've seen the Ivy Pepper fatal attraction smell, but this time as well we got to see the hallucinogenic pins or what's it called, the acupuncture pins, the hallucinogenic acupuncture pins, and I thought that was a great effect.
That was cool
as well, and I just thought it was really nicely shot. So yeah,
covering all of that in one episode as well. It's kind of cool to give that to a first time director like Ben McKenzie. He's known obviously for all of the episodes so far in Gotham.
Yep, through episodes 1 to 66 or however many episodes have been done. Yeah, you may know him from such shows as Gotham.
You might recognise him, yes.
And of course, if you are old and withered like myself, you may also remember him in his iconic white vest, which has been referenced a few times, from the OC.
Absolutely.
And of course, he was in Southland as well, which was another collaboration with the showrunner.
That's right. Yeah, one of the interesting things about all of that is that he's never done a show where there's so much, I suppose, hallucinogenic things going on in an episode. So giving him an episode that's not a straight up standard cop drama is really interesting, and I think he handled it really well.
Yeah, really good. Yeah.
I know Robin Lord Taylor and Drew Pell on the interview we had with them at London's Hero Villain Fan Fest. They were very complimentary to the fact that he is the leader of their group and is able to really give them good direction in the show. He knows them all really, really well. So go back and listen to that podcast if you haven't heard of that interview that we had with the two members of the cast. Very cool. But I thought they were very complimentary about having Ben McKenzie. So wouldn't be surprised at all if he becomes a regular director on the show.
Absolutely, yeah.
But the episode was written by Robert Hull, another one of the main writers on the show. He's one of the executive producers and had many credits over the last 3 seasons of Gotham. And one of my favourite writers. Really enjoyed a lot of his episodes before.
Absolutely.
John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for the episode?
Absolutely. Sure. As Cobblepot recovers from his wounds, he attempts to build an army to take back power from Ed Nigma, Barbara, Tabitha, and Butch. He calls Gabe, who betrays and attempts to auction him off. But Ivy comes to the rescue with her Truth and Command perfume, revealing that Gabe never respected Oswald and saw him as a freak. In retribution, Oswald trowel kills Gabe and begins to listen to Ivy's suggestion to build an army of freaks. At the dungeon, a shaman tells Bruce that he can be Gotham's savior, but needs training beyond Alfred's boxing and fighting skills. But Bruce is suspicious and tries to escape his prison, only to find a never-ending circular loop of corridors. Once more back in his cell, the shaman gives Bruce hallucinogens that cause him to relive the night of his parents' murder, the moment that is clouding and holding back Bruce's progression. Soon after the traumatic memory, Bruce appears to accept the need for this specialized training. After learning a weapon is being transported to Gotham, Jim Gordon investigates the Court of Owls further and realizes his father's death was a hit organized by his Uncle Frank. Frank is ordered to kill Jim, but he instead commits suicide, and Jim, following his uncle's last bit of advice, decides to meet with Catherine from the court.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this was really good. And again, another really nice little shot here where as he gets into the car awaiting from the court, it goes to black and Gotham comes through that black. Absolutely. Rather than with the Gotham skyline up behind it. Yeah. It was a different little use of the Gotham logo there at the end of the episode, which I thought was, again, a really nice touch.
It felt like a real cliffhanger moment. We are usually left with cliffhangers on a lot of the episodes of Gotham, but not normally like this. This really felt like we're shutting down here, come back next week.
Absolutely. I would say Jim is going to get killed by the court and he'll be replaced by a Jimmelganger.
Possibly, but I don't think so.
Who maybe investigates more.
Maybe.
And doesn't leave, quote Leslie, a trail of death and destruction in his wake that he can move on from.
You never know. But I think it's time to get into our case notes. And our first case note is about Jim's investigation. The investigation of his dad's fatal car accident.
Yeah, it's murder.
Yes.
Yes. And how do we know this? All because of the Irish curse. Yes. Derek.
Cheers.
Yes, the drunk driver was called Michael Haas and had chronic persistent hepatitis, which doesn't sound too great, to be honest, which means basically one sniff of alcohol and he would have been dead, basically. Snotted, so there was no way he could have been drunk at the wheel. A really nice little through course here of this investigation. I love that it's Harvey ultimately that breaks the sort of impasse on it by understanding the Irish curse.
I know, it's like as if he's saying it's some kind of fairy tale or nightmare that's told to children from when they're born in Ireland, that you never want to have this particular disease, and everybody learns the name. It's not true. That's not what happens. We don't get told as a kid. But I love the idea that you're told this and all the way through your life, you know this is the one disease you don't want, not being able to have a sniff of alcohol or you'll die.
Well, it's more I suppose, the crazily sort of traumatic Children of Lear.
Maybe. Oh, very good.
It's fairly dark.
It is
fairly
very,
dark.
Very dark. Good story, though.
Good story. Involves swans. So dark swans. Evil swans.
I think it. Nothing to do with the chronic persistent hepatitis, though.
No, absolutely. And I think, like, again, as he's investigating, there's the moment where he goes to the cemetery. And again, I just want to pull this out. I thought this was a fantastic shot of Jim looking over Gotham with the cemetery there. Like, the shot was really, really awesome.
Like, we've been to that location quite a few times
yeah.
on the show, because obviously a lot of people get killed in this show. We've been there right back to the first season, and obviously when Leslie was with Mario.
Yeah.
But we've never seen it in this side with Jim looking out over the city of Gotham with his father's grave in front of him. I thought that was a beautiful shot, really beautifully laid.
Really, really good. And of course, unfortunately for Leslie, she bumps into Ben. In fairness, again, quite interesting. Obviously, Ben directing himself as well as his wife.
That's true.
You know, so
Their wife now.
yeah. So I love though that Leslie again makes him burn. Talking about the old couple, and the old man visiting his wife's grave, and laughing and smiling whilst he's there because they shared a whole life together, which Jim didn't allow her and Luigi to do. Mario. It was the other one. Yeah.
Terrible.
You know, how can you go on and move on, leaving such destruction in your wake? She says.
Yeah.
But the investigation does take a really interesting turn, where it's shown that Falcone paid for the lawyer to effectively get the drunk driver from going to prison for any long period of time. I think he's in there for 5 years in Blackgate, but eventually gets killed in a kerfuffle at Blackgate.
A knife-wielding kerfuffle.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's quite interesting having Falcone involved in this, because obviously everything that's gone on between Jim and Falcone over the years, and also obviously that Falcone knew his father, he respected his father. So quite interesting to have him embroiled in this, again showing the control of the court and showing how much they had over Falcone to make him do this on a person that he trusted and respected. So
Falcone ultimately lets the big bomb drop, which is that it was his Uncle Frank that paid or ordered the hit on his own brother, Jim's dad. So like what a sort of twisty turny world that Jim is living in at the moment, really.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it leads to some really good confrontations between him and his uncle. Like, I love the moment where his uncle sort of gets out of being cuffed. You see Jim's wispy hair flying back, which is really funny, I always find. Because it looks like it's Brill cream down.
Oh, yeah.
And then all of a sudden it goes a bit kind of wavy and flashy as it gets knocked. But I love that, and I love at the end as well, where ultimately his Uncle Frank kills himself in order to allow Jim another route into sort of getting in and infiltrating the Court of Owls.
Absolutely.
By having this conversation with Catherine. And, you know, right on cue, taxi, there's the black limo at the end of the episode. But I mean,
I can't say enough about this actor James Remar, who was in the episode playing Uncle Frank. Like, we know him all the way back to Dexter. He was on that for years.
Yes, he was Dexter's dad.
Dexter Morgan's dad. That's right. He also was in one of my favorite films of all time, in The Warriors, back in the 70s. I didn't see it in the 70s. I was way too young for it then. But he's one of those true New York actors. He's always around, but he's also been involved in a lot of Batman. He's done a lot of the animated series. He's played Two-Face. He's played Black Mask. As a voice in the animated series, so he's been around this quite a lot. So it's quite cool to have him in Gotham for the short time he's there, for his 3-episode stint. Yeah,
but those confrontations that between Jim and Uncle Frank just really, really worked. You know, it's kind of that moment where you know, what's happening. How's it going to work out? How is it going to pan out? And it felt really, really natural. I loved how Uncle Frank, took on Jim. Like, they both have those same genes working, and it's just like, I love that kind of confrontation. And I mean, ultimately, we do kind of see that, after our discussion in our last episode, that Frank, in a way, was one of the good guys. He does sacrifice. It is a sacrifice of himself so that Jim can take on the work that he was doing, and his dad, i.e. to undermine and destroy the Court of Owls. So I think this is a really good little story arc that's happened, and I think it's been done really, really well. And
I liked how it played out. Yeah, we were questioning his motives. We were wondering whether he was just trying to get Jim into the court, and he was actually working for the court. But I like how they proved that he was telling Jim the truth here. There's a lot of moments of hesitation with him, which we didn't really see in previous episodes, and the fact that he kills himself to sacrifice himself really to give Jim this opportunity.
And he's backed into a difficult situation with the court as well, because they find out that Jim is now looking into his father's death and the accident there. It's to the point where Frank really is convinced that the court no longer trusts him. So really, really interesting. I think
a great pairing in the show, definitely. Speaking of pairings, our second case note is our brand new
the odd couple,
crazy couple.
The Laurel and Hardy of Gotham.
Maybe.
Ivy Pepper and Oswald Cobblepot. I really enjoyed their sort of just shouty interaction with one another. The sort of dismissive view of Oswald, and Ivy ultimately coming out and saying, I just want you to like me. Like, Ivy has had this all the way through. And I love that she really just puts that on the line, and she's there trying to help him. And he's coming out with, I don't want any pinecone juice from the crazy plant lady. And I love how sort of they're really just not working. I mean, there's a great bit of banter where he just he's telling her the orders to give to the person that's under her control, and she just keeps shouting them. And he's like, stop shouting. And she, you can see that hurts her. Like, she wants to be a part of Oswald Cobblepot, and she's helped him, brought him back from the brink of death. And he's coming out with crazy plant lady, or he's shouting at her, ordering at her. He's not listening to her at all, with her warnings of our third point.
But he isn't very grateful at all.
Not really.
For everything she's done for him. I love the interplay between the two characters. It's really interesting. Again, she's a 15-year-old girl trapped in an older woman's body, so he probably just thinks of her as a bimbo. Maybe he doesn't know the fact that she's, trying to make it in the world, has no real friends around, so she's reaching out to him, thinks, well, I saved this guy's life, maybe he'll actually be nice to me, because everybody has treated her so badly as a woman as a kid on the street, an urchin on the street, I guess, after her parents both died. She's had a really bad life up to this point, and she's just being friendly with him, but he's not taking anything from her at all.
Absolutely.
It's really good. Really, really good.
Really good. And I do think it's going to be so intriguing. So you want to build an army. What about an army of freaks? Are we going to see a team up now with Fish Mooney and Professor Strange, hooking up with Oswald to round up the freaks, keep them in the lifestyle and the pharmaceuticals that they need in order to survive? Because that will be really good. I'm really looking forward to seeing both Fish and Strange coming back. Obviously, they've been gone for a long time now, probably since, episode 3, 2 or 3. I think it was Burn the Witch was the last episode. So it'd be great to reconnect with these characters. What have they been doing?
Absolutely.
How are they going to interact with Oswald? Because it was left with Fish and Oswald kind of coming to some kind of understanding, and now that he needs allies, he needs this freak army. It's really good, and I love how he comes to accept himself as a freak as well. And I think that probably moves us on to our third case note,
it does,
which is because Gabe gets greedy.
Gabe has been the right hand man, or because obviously Butch is. Has always been Oswald's left-hand man when he's around. Gabe has been the right-hand man to Oswald right back to season 1. He's always been around. He's always been in the background. We've seen him in and out of episodes. He's the one that murdered Riddler's girlfriend. He's the one that cut the brakes on her car and killed her. So he's had a lot to do, but he's never really had many more than 1 or 2 lines. It's interesting for the cast, or for the writers of Gotham, for Robert Hull, to take this character from the background and put him right up in the foreground and tell you everything you need to know about Oswald in this neat little package that, he always thought there was just one person he could trust above and beyond everybody else because the guy was too stupid to know any better. And what he finds out is he never trusted Oswald. He never had his back. He was just scared of him and thought he was a freak and would flip on a dime and kill him. Which is, in fact, what happens.
Yeah, he went with Penguin out of fear, not loyalty.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that it is this truth smell from Ivy, where she says, do you promise to be faithful, to respect and be loyal to Oswald? And he says no. And it's the fact that Oswald, before that, has said, I can go with respect and fear. And in the end, he says... Well, he kind of says that no one else respected you because they just saw you as a freak.
Yes.
And that is what effectively makes Oswald go crazy. But also, it seems like he is shouting out freak, taking that ownership of it. So it's like he's decided, I am. And he is taking it on. He's owning that in the same way that Enigma was taking on the persona and owning the Riddler moniker.
And in the same way that Oswald has taken on the moniker of the Penguin, because that was a thing that he used to trigger on and used to kill people on the back of calling him the Penguin. He did it on Freak before. I remember there was at least one murder where somebody called him a freak and he murdered them. This is the second time for that, at least. It is a brutal murder and the death of a character that has, again, been a background character, but he's always been around. So it is sad to see Gabe go. I am definitely sad that we have this character.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
So he will now be arming himself or surrounding himself with the freaks, given Ivy's guidance. Yeah. It's quite interesting.
And the Primroses got a drink of blood.
Yes, it is.
Yes, those bloody primroses.
Do you think we'll have a little Shop of Horrors type of gross?
I was thinking, because they seem to be putting the bodies of the other people that had come with Gabe, who he was going to sort of auction Oswald off to. It looked very Hannibal-esque, actually, that they were burying them in soil. And I just wonder whether, Ivy... She does like to experiment with plants. Whether she does kind of like that whole mushroom arc from Hannibal, and does some kind of
grown mushrooms.
Yeah, plants that are feeding off the humans, or have just been fertilized with the blood of Gabe.
I like it.
That would be proper dark, proper good. Really good Shop of Horrors type thing.
Yeah, maybe
absolutely.
Gotham Knights for season 4, maybe.
But we've seen her already develop her smell and tell potion. Yeah. So
I like that too. That would sell like hotcakes on shelves, wouldn't it? If
you can't handle the smell of the truth.
I like it. Yeah. But then the other side of the episode is obviously the Court of Owls and what they're doing in the city. It's quite cool. Our case note 4 is the court and its weapon. I really like this. We're learning a bit more about the court and their intentions in the city. This really felt like Ra's al Ghul's plan from Batman Begins. This idea of tearing down Gotham when it gets out of control and then rebuilding it in the way they want to. That was absolutely the plan of
Gotham must fall. Yeah, absolutely.
This was the plan of Liam Neeson's Ra's al Ghul in Batman Begins.
And it's fallen twice before.
Interestingly.
Yeah. I keep thinking that the Scottish actor is going to come in, who was it in DC Washington must fall and London must fall, and he's going to save the day.
Gotham must fall. I love it.
Yeah, it's the third in
trilogy.
the new series of movies. Yeah, the trilogy. But yeah, I really
Jared
like
Butler.
this. Yeah,
Sorry, it took me a
Jared
second to
Butler.
get his name,
Yeah,
yes.
Jared Butler. That's it. It's a really good idea. Yeah, Catherine makes reference as well to our leader when they're all having to put the feathers down on the table. So he or she is not in the room. Is it potentially a Ra's al Ghul? Who he could be the actual leader of the Court of Owls here. But yeah, as they're putting their feathers down to get unanimous vote on Gotham being destroyed and rebuilt. The other interesting thing, and I know for me it kind of links in with our fifth note, but we see we're hearing about this weapon. We see that there's a big Indian Hill box there that has been delivered to Dock 9C. Is that the weapon for Gotham that the court is going to use, or? And I know we'll come on more with our fifth point, but Bruce is in the mountains, in this cell with this teacher, with this shaman, being told that he can protect. Is Bruce the weapon, or is Bruce the next stage of their plan? I.e., that they will destroy it, but then he's there to be the defender, the savior, or will he be deployed in Gotham? I suspect it's probably that they do intend on absolutely destroying Gotham, that Gotham will fall, and that then they've actually taken Bruce to teach him in these other ways that he can deploy to become, or help him on the journey of becoming probably a member of the court in their view, or if it is Ra's al Ghul, maybe a member of his group as well.
Yeah, perhaps.
The League of Shadows.
Or League of Assassins,
Well,
depending.
League of Assassins.
I think Assassins probably Gotham.
And maybe that, obviously Bruce goes off in a different direction. But I kind of like that idea that they haven't just locked Bruce up. I like the fact that they are now effectively trying to persuade him and do something with him. And I really like that kind of idea. Really for Bruce as well.
Definitely.
And it's no offense to Alfred's teaching. Boxing and those fighting skills absolutely required, but this is taking it into that more mystical direction. Absolutely. Yeah. But we see the Talon come back.
We do,
well.
yes. That was quite interesting because obviously the
new Talon.
Yeah, the Talon was murdered, so this is obviously a new one or a replacement, or potentially he was brought back from the dead. That has happened quite a lot in Gotham as well. So maybe it is the Talon that was murdered, has come back.
Yeah,
that's the other option there for Bruce as well. Maybe he's being trained to be a Talon in future.
Maybe
we will talk about it. We'll get on to that point now, really, I suppose, because there's not really too much more to say about the weapon, is there?
Well, other than I do like the fact that when the Talon comes out to protect that Indian Hill crate, that the guard loses his head in a nice Gotham brutal way. But I love the fact that Babs and Tabs just effectively make a run for the nearest exit. They really do recognise that the Talon has got certain skills and strengths that maybe even be beyond them.
I do feel sorry for the guys, though. The guys that were backing them up. There was no even call out to say, guys, run this. No, just the two of us just go.
Yeah, Babs just kind of like just passes Tabitha and was like, right, door. Really loved that moment.
Cool.
Like, save your own skins, absolutely.
Yeah.
Babs and Tabs head for the exit.
Very cool. Very cool. But yeah, to our final point, Bruce's strange trip. This is one of the best looking sequences that we've seen in Gotham. I think we've had a few kind of things like this before, but I really enjoyed this moment because it gives you David Mazouz in a brand new situation as Bruce, where he is being made relive the worst moment and the worst night in his life.
Yeah,
it is also fascinating to see young Bruce and current Bruce in the same scene together.
Absolutely.
David was so young in that pilot.
Yeah.
And you don't really realise how young he was until you see them pretty much side by side in this episode.
Absolutely.
Come along a long way, but it is really difficult, and David plays it fantastically, where he's screaming effectively in a withheld way a bit, but he's screaming to the guy going, why are you making me relive that night? Why are you forcing me to go through that moment over and over again? We know that's something that Batman does for his entire life, is relive that horrible moment of his life. So being forced to relive it must be really painful for Bruce.
Definitely, but the shaman here really does seem to be saying, like, this is what you're most afraid of. This is the thing holding you back from what we see you can become or you can do for us in Gotham. But yeah, I mean, it was, first of all, I loved the sort of the cloudy eyes, the pupils rolling back. I loved him coming out of it, and the pupil. So the effect there was really, really well done, and even just kind of the sort of powdery, smoking ends of those needles.
Yeah.
I really like that, and I think, yeah, absolutely. The look of trauma on grown up David Mazouz's face, he did that so well, seeing his former self and his mum and dad walking past him and getting murdered. The trauma that he showed on his face, and then when he's back in reality, the panic, the kind of almost claustrophobicness that's been that he feels because of that traumatic event.
Yeah.
I thought it was played absolutely really, really well. I thought it was top notch. And I mean, the other great thing as well is that not only is it accessing memories, but you can relive them again. But it seems, there's a great moment where Bruce is trying to sort of punch, trying to fight with the shaman, who is absolutely heads and tail above Bruce.
Yeah.
Bruce is no match for this guy, and who then super punches him like proper sort of Matrix style.
Absolutely,
down the alleyway.
I was thinking of the Neo fight.
Yeah, definitely.
Matrix.
But the great thing about this is that when he's back in the cell in that reality, the wound is still there, so he can be injured within his mind when transported there into that memory through this hallucinogen. There are physical consequences to it, which is kind of interesting, probably if he makes use of this in some way.
Absolutely.
But I was just thinking, who is this shaman?
Like the other thing about that hallucinogen, it does kind of feel like the fear toxin that we know from Scarecrow. It does kind of feel a little bit like that. So potentially there's another little character being laid up there or something.
Possibly. I'd love to see the Scarecrow come back.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Great to see Charlie Tahan back, who played Jonathan Crane in series 1.
I thought he was excellent. I'd really love to see him back on the show. But who is this shaman? Because for me, is he the head of the court that Catherine referred to? Is he just a shaman? Is he just a teacher? Or is he Ra's al Ghul in some other form, or part of his League of Assassins or League of Shadows? Because Ra's al Ghul, sorry, because it is moving Bruce and what he can learn if he really is accepting all of this. It's moving it into that mystical, magical world, and deception, and like the power that going into your memory and reliving it for a detective,
absolutely,
is massively powerful. I really liked that, so I can't wait to see how the shaman pans out, really, and who he is. I know Ra's al Ghul is obviously slated in.
He's coming.
Yeah. And it doesn't. I can't remember the actor's name. He was obviously in Game of Thrones and Deep Space Nine.
Alexander Siddiq, I believe is his name.
Was it Deep Space Nine or was it
Deep Space
Voyager?
Nine. Yeah, no, Deep Space Nine.
It was Deep. And so it's not him.
But it could be him under mask.
Exactly,
There could
yeah.
be some deception there. We don't actually know whether this is real life. If it is real life and it's not all in a hallucinogenic dream. How is the whole corridor thing happening? How are they able to control that? I did love that moment. It is a total standout of the episode as Bruce is trying to run to get away and comes back to the same cell, and the shaman is standing inside the door going, "Can we begin now?" I just think that's a great little moment.
Definitely.
But yeah, that's why I feel like it's all taking place in this kind of in his mind. Whatever way it's happening, it's taking place in his mind. So I wonder if Bruce has ever even actually left Gotham, if this is happening all within his mind, within Gotham.
That would be really good.
Or within a certain box on a Pier 9C. You never know. It could be there.
Yeah.
It could be inside the Indian Hill box. You never know.
That would be very spooky.
There you go. That's our top 5 points. A couple of notes about this episode, though. A couple of very interesting moments within here.
Aubrey James, Mayor Aubrey, is back in town and in charge. As Harvey says, the original crook is back.
It was quite cool when it came up on screen.
Absolutely fab.
When it came up on screen, I just instantly laughed at this concept where it's like, okay, so yeah, well, the last mayor, he was a murderer, he was who took over from Aubrey James. He was a murderer. He came back from the dead and then went on a killing spree. And then Aubrey James got back into power. And then he loses in an election by a landslide vote to Oswald Cobblepot, who gets murdered and disappeared. Oh, sure, we might as well give it back to the former corrupt mayor, who we all knew was corrupt, but we just keep giving the job to him.
He's a boomerang. He keeps coming back.
Yeah, it's great.
It's
great. But the next note is obviously Babs. I love the moment when she's sitting in her big chair, taking the phone call, and answers it as Barbara Queen here. Which I love. So she's now thinking of herself. She's taken over from Oswald. She's gotten him out of the way.
She's the queen of Gotham.
She is the new queen of Gotham. Effectively taken over from Fish Mooney as the former queen of Gotham, which is quite cool. What I also loved is a nice little touch here. Music has always been really important in the show. I love when they're able to get a song that really stands out. Effectively, Jim has described the person that he's got to go back to and ask to help him out once again, another favour effectively. And as it pans into the Sirens Bar, we hear Love Hurts by Nazareth, which is pretty much their entire relationship summed up in a song, isn't it?
Big time.
That's quite cool.
And of course, we get the return of the Holy Cannoli Batman. Yes, the cannoli makes a lovely little cameo here. This time it's not poisoned.
No.
Or was it?
No, I don't think so.
Were they shot before? Because Gabe maybe was trying to poison them. Who knows? But certainly it didn't seem as though the cannoli was poisoned.
I do like it.
Yes,
It's
a nice little cameo.
Yeah.
Cameo cannoli.
It's a touch that almost says, Oswald, if you had your normal faculties about you the way you had in season 1, you could easily have taken these guys out with just a box of cannolis, I like that. Yeah, it's very cool. John, Bullockisms of the week?
Yeah, I absolutely love it when he turns to Jim and he says, "I like the family reunion you're having." Jim has just found out that his uncle ordered a hit on his father, that his father was a member of this secret organization that controls everything, along with his uncle, the deception, the lies, the just everything. And Harvey has that great line. Absolutely.
I think my one is same scene, I believe. It's effectively where he's saying to him, "Have you thought that maybe Frank is telling you the truth?" And goes, I guess it's just me. I give apocalyptic warnings the benefit of the doubt," he says. Which I like. Nice little moment. If you have a Bullockism of the week, all you need to do is email us at feedback@gothamtvpodcast.com, and you'll be in with a chance of winning a Harvey Bullock pop vinyl, which you can see down just behind John's elbow there. The first season of Gotham Cards, the base cards for the Gotham Trading Cards Season 1, donated to us by one of our listeners. We'll be giving that away at the end of the season, where we've been keeping them back, as hoping that the UK will be getting awesome cards in there, hoping that the UK will be getting Gotham pretty soon. But by the end of the season, we'll be giving those away and probably throwing a few more prizes, since we've made you wait a little bit longer than
yes, exactly. And for me, for this episode, this is going to be a shocker.
Right. Okay.
This is going to be like buses. I'm giving this 5 bloody primroses out of 5.
Wow.
And dare I say it, say on revision, I would knock the Jerome episode back just in terms of relative.
Okay.
It's still a 5 out of 5, absolutely, and I stand by that.
Yep.
But I think this is my favourite episode so far.
Wow.
I absolutely really enjoyed Jim's story in this with his Uncle Frank, with Harvey. It felt like there was a proper investigation going on. I love the little bits of hilarity as well that are still maintained there, from Aubrey James being put as a temporary mayor to the odd couple. I loved Ivy and Oswald's interaction. The mic drop of Gabe actually not being that loyal after all, because I've loved that character. That was a true shock. I think Oswald accepting his freakism and going with it, and how that's going to play out. But I think as well with Bruce, we've seen the start of Batman's journey effectively, and this is a prequel, to the Batman entering and saying "Heidi ho" kind of thing.
Is it?
Yes, it is. But okay, we've seen that purely in the pilot with him witnessing his mum and dad's murder.
Absolutely.
But similarly, we've seen it with Alfred, and I feel this is one of those big steps, when Alfred started training him and what they were going to do. And I think that was at the end of the Jerome episode. So, and now we have this big step of him moving into potentially a different world, and then we have Jim involving himself to some degree with the Court of Owls. I really did absolutely enjoy all of this, and I think I give this a 5 bloody primroses out of 5.
Nice. So really what we need is Ben McKenzie directing Ben McKenzie and having a nice arc for Jim Gordon. That's kind of
you think of all that stuff happening in this episode. It's just as important, and really well shot. I mean, you have Ivy's smell tell perfume. You have you've got this these hallucinogenic acupuncture needles, like really good, and it's just like, this is really good how they're doing this, with so many different ensemble pieces and story arcs going on, developing them, keeping it light, keeping it serious, keeping it meaningful. But certainly I think Jim and Uncle Frank's confrontations and talks in this was really, really good. And I think Bruce with the shaman, absolutely excellent.
I suppose
Ivy and Oswald together.
I suppose if you've been in almost every scene since the beginning of the season, that you really do know the show as well as Ben McKenzie knows the show, and a great script overall from Robert Holt. Don't want to take it
absolutely
all away from, and then the cast are obviously always great, but really interesting. That's another 5 out of 5 for the season. Well done. Excellent. I think we need to go on to a little bit of feedback. A little technical issue there. Oops, camera fell over.
Okay.
Sorry. So a slightly different picture for our feedback. So we lost the previous bit of feedback. But our feedback for this week comes from Claire Payne. On this episode, she says, Ivy Pepper is a colourful joy of fresh air. I've really enjoyed her interactions with Selena, Bruce and Alfred at the beginning of the season, but this episode really made you understand the crazy plant lady. Maggie Gyllenhaal manages to balance a certain amount of maturity, enthusiasm, and still makes you believe you're watching a 15 to 16-year-old girl, even if she doesn't look like one. Ivy's natural perception with Gabe was an interesting turn. Ivy impressed me how she is fearless around Oswald, and I automatically thought they would become friends because she rescued and nursed Oswald back to good health. In Oswald's own prickly defensive way, he thinks it's kind of ridiculous that she would be such a friend's a freak. Interesting. I know. I love this character. Really, really enjoying the interaction she has with Oswald, particularly in this episode. And again, he's just not grateful at all for everything that she's done for him.
Absolutely. I really think we got to see the new incarnation of Ivy Pepper really properly for the first time. We've seen her with Bruce and Selena. We've seen her off on her own things, taking expensive items off older gentlemen. But this I really enjoyed her interaction with Oswald. I really felt it was kind of a coming of age of this character. Now she's kind of made that connection with Gotham's underworld, like, until Selina ultimately turns into Catwoman, she hasn't had, other than being a street urchin.
That's true, yeah, that's true. Claire goes on to say, I really enjoyed the scene where Ivy and Oswald are tied up, and she knows Oswald how he's going to use her truth potion and instructs one of Gabe's gang to kill them all. I found it really interesting that Oswald was willing to see if Gabe could become that loyal allegiance that he always thought he was, but unfortunately he only followed him out of fear, with no respect at all, and always thought of him as a freak. R.I.P. Gabe. I'm sad he wasn't the character that would remain loyal to Penguin, but it looks like Ivy is going to be the one who's going to be loyal to her on her own terms. Revealing her connections to Selina and knowing about the people at Indian Hill, they could start their own army of freaks. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. I reckon freaks are on the way.
I think so.
Rejoice.
Welcome back, freaks. Claire goes on to say, so Bruce gets a visit from the Temple Shaman. He essentially working with the Court of Owls, but only sees them as a tool. I really felt this part of the episode really showed the true beginnings of Bruce Wayne becoming the Batman. He is asked to pick a direction, taken back to the alleyway where his parents were killed, and brought back as he needs to move on before he can be fully prepared to learn. Gotham needs a protector, a symbol against fear. These scenes were so rich with direction and information that I'm so glad they have developed Bruce's storyline as much as they have with the villains of Gotham.
Definitely. And we think they're the Court of Owls, but maybe there's someone else behind the Court of Owls, like a Russian doll.
Maybe, yeah, there could be something
a maestro within a maestro within a maestro.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Could be. We never know who the real leader is behind this game.
Definitely, but I think this is a really interesting turn for Bruce Wayne, and certainly that idea of deceptive detective work, I should say, really seems to be an interesting part here. And you know, he won't want to be bound by the Court of Owls. I wouldn't have thought so. This is going to end up being a really interesting storyline, definitely.
Yeah, really looking forward to it. He's definitely learning some tricks, or will hopefully learn some tricks from the shaman here that he will use in the future as Batman.
Yeah, definitely. Claire goes on to say, the beginning of this episode was instantly captivating with the Court of Owls meeting held by Catherine and involving Frank Gordon. Definitely. With a vote in agreement, judgment has passed. Gotham must fall. Mm-hmm. Revealing Frank was the actual reason for Jim's father's death was told really well between Falcone, Jim, and the court, with Frank killing himself. Harvey now knowing about the existence of the court and the arrival of a limousine to take Jim off to the Court of Owls, which I have to say at the end of the episode was so good how Gotham End titles appears. Yeah. Absolutely, I really agree there. I thought this was a really strong, solid story for Jim as both a detective and just as a person, having that family connection. And it was a really good interaction with Harvey as his colleague as well. I think harking back much more to some of the earlier episodes of season 1 actually, where they really paired up, and it was good to see Harvey getting again another good little meaty role within this episode. Definitely. Claire finishes off with, Ben McKenzie's director debut was so good. It must be so strange to direct yourself. I do hope he directs another episode in season 4, and I will look forward to watching the episode Ben has written in season 4.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing
the
episode
definitely
by one of the cast members as well.
Written, directed, and dare I say starred in, I think might be appearing on the opening credits of Gotham.
Someday. It is difficult directing yourself. That's why I direct John all the time. That's what he says.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thanks so much for that feedback.
Henpecked.
Yes. Thanks so much for that feedback, Claire. Really good.
Or penguin pecked, maybe.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Claire, for that feedback again. Really good stuff, and we're so glad you're enjoying season 3 of Gotham.
Pretty much as we are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. If you want to send in any feedback to us, just email us over at feedback@gothamtvpodcast.com. Come join us over on our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/GothamTVPodcast, and make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you can get all of our coverage for the rest of the season of Gotham over at gothamtvpodcast.com/iTunes for Apple Podcasts, or search for us on any good or villainous podcast catcher under Gotham TV Podcast.
Absolutely. And of course, you can watch our episodes on YouTube every Wednesday, or, as Derek has said, go and listen to it on our podcast with one of those podcast catchers.
Absolutely.
It's like the child catcher from Chitty Bang Bang.
It is.
But less nets and less hook noses.
Well, there's a lot of hook noses with the penguin in this episode. In every
That
episode.
is true, actually. Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. The penguin is the child catcher from Chitty Bang Bang.
Maybe he is. But we'll be back with episode 17 of Gotham next week. Looking forward to seeing
Yeah,
some more of the
absolutely.
series. Always, this has been a great season. Really been enjoying it. Thank you so much for joining us. See you again next week.
Absolutely. I'm off to eat some unpoisoned cannoli this time. As always, it's been fantastic speaking with you, and we will be with you next time. Bye.
Thanks for being a Butch supporter. Butch loves you, baby.